The factions of the Galactic Council were in heated discussions about how to handle the newcomers, humans. Traditionally, the Council could analyze a new species science fiction to gain insight into their nature and how to approach them. There was always a certain consistency in how a species perceived itself and others. Humans didn't write science fiction that way. Their stories covered such a breadth of possibilities that the Galactic Council was at a loss. In some of the stories, humans were peaceful explorers, merely searching the cosmos to see what was out there because they could. They would explore places too dangerous for anyone to even consider entering and come out with fantastic stories and new discoveries. A common theme among these stories was the ability of humans to adapt to any and every environment. One faction of the Galactic Council was using this to support the idea of giving humans ships with the best sensors and fastest engines and turning them loose to map the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Stories of humans being brilliant, yet terrifying engineers, capable of understanding and repairing any technology were also common. In some of these stories, a human would make a complicated gadget out of random things found in the immediate environment, or they would reverse engineer some technology far too advanced for them to have developed for themselves, only to adapt it to their own use and create entirely new technologies based off of it. But some of the stories in this genre also indicated that human inventions or modifications to existing technology may make things worse, or even explode. This genre was used by two separate factions, one wanting to push humans into engineering fields, and the other wanting to keep humans far, far away from any technology, including technology the humans had already developed. Yet other stories made humans out to be compassionate allies, bringing medical aid to anyone in need. Pacifists promising to do no harm. There was a movement to allow humans unfettered access to every civilization within the Council's reach to allow this aid to be given freely. There was debate over the stories that claimed that humans would pack bond with anything and everything, or that humans would be willing to mate with anything or everything, but there was some talk about sending humans to civilizations that were having problems maintaining their populations to see if the infusion of new DNA would bolster the birth rates. And then there were the stories that made humans out to be a warmongering species, impossible to defeat on the battlefield and willing to commit genocide at the smallest slight against them. Several factions wanted to try to recruit humanity to reinforce, or even to be the military wing of the Council. Other factions thought that these stories indicated that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed in galactic society at all and argued that humanity should be wiped out before they could do harm. The lone human sitting in on the meeting seemed amused by it all. When the Council finally asked him to weigh in, he stepped up to the podium, hooked his thumbs into his pants pockets, and began to speak. Hello. As I understand, it's considered tradition to introduce yourself and explain the meaning of your name. My name is Leon Royce. I was named after a sandwich or a movie character, I'm not sure. It doesn't really matter. You want to know what we are? And I'm here to tell you, he said. We are none of those things. You pluck any individual human off of Earth and try to make them do any of those things, there's no guarantee they'll be able to do it. A roar went up in the Council chamber, and it took a moment for the Council president to calm the crowd. Leon just waited until they calmed down and then continued. We are also all of those things. As a species, we're explorers, doctors, engineers, lovers, and fighters. And as individuals, some of us are many of those things all at once. Perhaps you've seen a story where the main character rattles of a list of things a human being ought to be able to do. There are certainly humans that can't do all of those things or even any of them, but you'll rarely find a human that can't do multiple things with at least some degree of competency. The man was right. Specialization is for insects. Leon paused, looked at the sapient insects to his left, and added, no offense. Point is, you can't pigeonhole our entire species into one role. We don't fit neatly into any of your boxes. Leon then turned to the section of the chamber where the more warlike species were congregated and steeled his gaze. One thing's for sure, though. If you do try to make war against us, it'll be the last mistake you ever make. That's bold talk for a lone, squishy ape, said a representative from one of the reptilian species. The reptilian jumped when the large potted plant behind him said, He's not alone. Not by a long shot. The rubbish bin across the aisle from it said. The reptilian fainted. The reptilian's retinue rushed to him and rendered aid. He quickly came to, and Leon continued, We are happy to trade with you. We are happy to explore alongside you and beyond, into the places where you fear to tread. We'll crew your ships if you'll have us, and we'll let you join our crews if you're willing. If you really need to bolster some populations, I'm sure we can find some volunteers for that, too. And if it's war you want, Leon leveled his gaze at the reptilian who was back on his feet. Then fill your hands, you son of a beach. With that, Leon walked off the stage and headed for the door. An applause rose from the assembled crowd. As he approached the door, a human female seemed to spawn out of the potted plant to the left of the door. A human male began to extricate himself from the rubbish bin to the right of the door, though he was significantly less graceful and tipped the bin in the process. The applause was joined with laughter. The woman face-bombed while Leon just shook his head without breaking stride. The man from the rubbish bin found his feet just as Leon got even with him, and he and the woman fell into step behind him as Leon Royce stepped out of the council chamber. Galactic Society had mostly understood the point of Leon Royce's speech before the Galactic Council. They judged each human on his or her own individual merit and let them work whatever jobs they desired so long as they proved to be sufficiently competent. There was no attempt to war against them or subjugate them. Royce's backup in the council chamber had led to talk about the ability of humans to hide anywhere. Talk led to rumors, and some of those rumors claimed that humans were shapeshifters that could turn into nearly any object. When confronted about this, a human would just laugh, shake his or her head, and go back to whatever they were doing. For the most part, though, Galactic Society had come to understand what Leon Royce meant when he said that humans didn't fit into boxes. Over time, it became apparent that organized crime was a common occurrence across various cultures. It also became evident that organized crime worked the same across those various cultures. Rubina ran an import-export business. It was, of course, a front for her smuggling operation. She was always looking for opportunities and always looking to expand. She thought she had found one, but it required expanding into territory that was controlled by some humans. Controlled was a strong word. There were several factions among the humans all competing for the same territory. Rubina thought that division presented an opportunity, and she took her shot. She sent some of her crew after the leader of one of the human crime families, as they called themselves. They never came back, and Michael Wokes 8 was still alive and well. She knew to expect backlash, so she was staying in her warehouse. She had heard that humans didn't fit into boxes. Her warehouse was full of boxes. She figured she would be safe here. From her office, she heard a commotion out in the main warehouse. She went to investigate. "What's the problem here?" she demanded. "That box moved," one of her workers declared. "No, it didn't," another one exclaimed. "It wasn't there the last time I came through here," the first worker said. "Then someone must have come through and moved it while you were away," the second worker replied. "It's not like boxes can move themselves. No one else has been through here," the first worker exclaimed, getting more and more hysterical. "Enough," Rubina interjected. "Boxes don't move themselves." The first worker opened his mouth as if to interject, but Rubina cut him off. "We'll all stand here and watch it. If it moves, we'll shoot it. When it doesn't, we'll all get back to work." After a full hour, the box hadn't moved. Rubina declared, "Okay, that's enough. I don't want to hear another word about boxes moving on their own. Get back to work." With that, she stormed off to her office. Over the course of the afternoon, there were murmurs of boxes appearing out of nowhere, boxes disappearing into nothingness, and boxes seeming to teleport the length of aisles when nobody was looking. Anyone bringing it up quickly got told, "The boss doesn't want to hear it, just get back to work." And so they did. As the workday wound down and people left, Rubina found herself alone in the warehouse. She was starting to get hungry. It should be safe for her to leave the warehouse long enough to get dinner. She stepped out of her office and nearly ran into a box that shouldn't have been there. She was about to yell out for a work and demand to know why this box had been left here when she remembered that everyone was gone for the day. No matter. Surely, her workers were playing a prank on her. Pranks were unheard of before humans found their way into Galactic Society, but they had quickly become a bad habit that nearly every species picked up. She let out a sigh and started to head toward the door. She had made 4 steps before she found herself grappled from behind. She struggled, but whomever had a hold of her was strong. She wasn't going to get away. Fear coursed through her. She was sure she was dead. She felt a sharp pinch in her side, and suddenly she felt her control drain completely out of her muscles. Her captor lowered her gently to the ground and rolled her onto her back. "You're paralyzed," he said. He was lit from behind, so she couldn't make out any detail. She could see from his silhouette that he had a square jaw and broad shoulders, and she could tell that he was human. "It will wear off in a few hours. I'm here to deliver a message." She wanted to ask what the message was. She wanted to ask why he didn't just kill her. She wanted to ask a great many things, but she was well and truly paralyzed. She couldn't move anything. "Stay out of human space," the human said. "Stay out of our business dealings and stay out of our way. This is your only warning." With that, the human rolled her onto her side and stood up. There was silence for a moment, and then his voice spoke again, but it came from further away than before. "One more thing. Sonny sends his regards." She stayed in that spot in silence until her workers came back in the morning and found her. They called for medical attention, and the doctor assured her that no harm had been done and that whatever chemical she had been given was working its way out of her system as they spoke. She should have motor function back within a few hours. In the meantime, she was given nutrients via injection to help deal with the fact that she had missed both her evening and morning meals. She set her people to figuring out how the human had gotten into the warehouse and how he had gotten so close to her. A review of the security sensors showed that several boxes had, in fact, appeared to move on their very own, although no one was sure how. Someone theorized that the human had squatted inside the box, and that since it had no bottom, he had lifted the box and walked with it when no one was looking. This was deemed to be ridiculous. None of the boxes that were seen moving on the security recordings had seemed to sprout human legs and feet. They merely hovered over the ground by a measurement that the humans would describe as a couple of centimeters, and then seemed to float along. There was no way that was it. There was a security recording of the human approaching Rubina, though. He did seem to have appeared from the box that was outside of her office. The recording showed no more detail of the individual than Rubina had described herself, catching him only in silhouette. Upon examining the box she had found outside her door, they discovered it was bottomless. The person who suggested that the human had been walking beneath the box argued this as evidence, but the security experts dismissed it as absurd. Rubina learned many lessons that day. She took the warning seriously and resolved to steer clear of human affairs and territories. But the most crucial lesson she learned was that Leon Royce had deceived the Galactic Society. Humans absolutely do fit into boxes.